Well, I haven't completed all the notes for this thing, but so I'm just gonna wing it. I'm only doing this video tonight, and then I'm going to bed. So, this video, I think I'm gonna call probably the Mark Johnson proposals are still bad. Now, why would I say that? They didn't pass. They didn't even get considered yet. So just to start off my notes here, I literally have just talk here about what happened at the December 2024 Ada County GOP meeting. Well, anyway, the big bit of business at the meeting at the Wildlife Center out, from my point of view right now, it's that way, a long way, about that way. Out near the airport was a massive and necessary change to the attendance policy. Now, why am I talking about that? Well, it's a very related issue, as it turns out, of course. I hope I don't exactly have to spell out why it's needed, though, but yeah, so not going to say exactly what happened there yet because, well, that kind of ruins the video. But anyway, oh man, I'm rambling. I think Ryan Spoon did a fairly good job presenting the whole thing with the PowerPoint and a lot of the items discussed. This is also a small win for the local bylaw archive since he was able to look at what all the other committees do. Now, I only wrote here, instead of elaborating for myself later, why the debate took so long. Okay, so, and I've wrote down right next to this, don't identify him directly, because he'll probably out himself here in a little bit. But so the big item, as I just said, was the update to the attendance policy, and it's a really insidious problem going on right now. Just say that. I could rant for a long time on why that's bad, but the debate in and of itself on the whole thing effectively edged out all the other business. And now, why did the debate take so long? That was at least a couple-hour meeting. I mean, we were supposed to come to order at what, 6:30? I think it was a little later than that. And then I know it was past 9. Yeah, it was definitely past 9. And the vast majority of the time from 6:30 to way past 9, well, was taken up by debate on this thing, and there was a lot of, how should I say, a lot of inquiries, motions to amend the amendment. There's a lot of that stuff that if you're fairly experienced in Robert's Rules of Order stuff, that's after a little while it's pretty blatant that you're just trying to draw out the debate on something. And the way that the debate eventually had to end, because I remember it was people that kept on calling the question. In fact, one guy, I'm not going to identify this person either, but he's like, yeah, I think we're all gonna vote the way that we feel that we should be voting, and so the debate is no longer necessary. I don't think he said it quite like that, but yeah, it was pretty obvious. So, like, okay, and so yeah, the debate did come to a close for a while, but there was one man who was drawing it out a lot more unnecessarily than it needed to be, and the committee adjourned. The committee had to adjourn without taking care of the rest of the agenda, which included the Mark Johnson proposals that I was talking about in a recent video. I find that incredibly interesting, since that same someone, that same man, wrote a rather interesting post about the resolutions committee at the 2021 summer meeting in Pocatello. Now, I was there. In fact, I was even there presenting a resolution. It was one having to do with Rush Limbaugh, who had just recently passed. But yeah, I was there for a good chunk of it. In fact, it was at that meeting where I started the whole meme about playing circus music. If something's getting procedurally ridiculous and drawing out, it's a thing now in the Idaho Republican Party where somebody just starts playing circus music. I should have done it last night, but I'm not. I'm not elaborating on why I didn't. But so anyway, I have in my notes that I'm reading from. It just says read the Roner Pig post here. The Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised Pig post. Now, there's at least a couple of people who say they watch my videos already know. They very likely already know exactly by now, at least by now, exactly what I'm about to reference, who I'm referencing, and all that. But anyway, so name redacted Roner Pig post. He posted this not long after the summer meeting in 2021. And I'll start. We travel twice a year to the semi-annual Idaho GOP meetings to hear important issues in the form of resolutions. He's not wrong. Some things are very important. Resolutions passed at local committees or subgroups of the Idaho Republican Party. Occasionally, something so egregious happens outside of the arbitrary yet accepted deadline for filing the resolutions to the Central Committee that they require the consideration of the outside of the published agenda. The summer meeting held in Pocatello this weekend had several examples of these urgent and short notice resolutions. Not wrong either. That was a bit of a news cycle that, around that time. One resolution called for Biden to be impeached, removed by his cabinet, 25th Amendment. Yeah, we're still having a little bit of that, but anyway, I'll just continue. Or voluntary resignation due to his mismanagement of the Afghanistan withdrawal. It was considered and accepted by friendly parliamentary maneuver. This is where he starts complaining. It was appropriate to accept and pass this late resolution, even though it was submitted outside of the 45-day deadline. The same member who made the motion to accept this late resolution also used parliamentary chicanery. He did actually use the word chicanery here, if you go and find it on Facebook. Chicanery to keep other resolutions that he personally objected to from even being debated, discussed, or voted upon. In fact, he used parliamentary procedures to fuel a 45-minute debate over the definition of late versus late versus late submission. And I think I even joked about this on Twitter at the time. He is telling the story. He is telling the story accurately. 45 minutes of a scheduled 45 minutes of a scheduled 4-hour meeting to debate what the definition of is. So, in this post, he's actually complaining quite a bit, and he's upset about it. But I'll continue. And he actually has every right to be upset about how that meeting went. Just saying. Twice a year, with some members traveling 12 plus hours by car to be there, and we can't be bothered to even discuss urgent and immediate concerns if we surpass an arbitrary deadline. I wouldn't frame it quite like that, but okay. 4 hours to do work from the previous 6 months. We allow one parliamentary procedure expert to make motion after motion to delay and obfuscate the process. And he makes a little bit of a weird jump right here, but you'll eventually get why here in a moment. On June 15th of 1859, farmer Lyman Cutler found a pig rooting in his garden. He shot it. The pig belonged to Charles Griffin, a sheep rancher who lived nearby. Cutler offered $10, equivalent to $290 in 2020, to Griffin to compensate for the pig, but Griffin demanded $100, equivalent to $2,900 in 2020. Then Cutler said he should not have to pay for the pig because the pig had been trespassing on his land. One likely apocryphal account has Cutler saying to Griffin, "It was eating my potatoes," and Griffin replied, "It is up to you to keep your potatoes out of my pig." Okay, whatever. There's a bit of a disagreement on a thing happening in a place very sparsely populated in 1859. And he even explains here. Griffin and Cutler lived on San Juan Island, near what is now Vancouver and Seattle. The island was disputed between the United States and the British. Cutler was an American. Griffin was an Irishman working for the UK's Hudson Bay Company. The British threatened to arrest Cutler for his porcicide, and yes, that is a real word. I checked. In turn, he called on the American military for protection. Soon, the north end of the island hosted 3 British warships and an encampment of Royal Marines. To the south, the Americans had 1 ship, dozens of soldiers, and an artillery battery. The American commander George Pickett, better known for his later work, told the newspapers, "We'll make a Bunker Hill of it." Eventually, diplomatic negotiations prevailed, and cooler heads in London and Washington decided they would be rather embarrassed to fight a war over a dead pig in the middle of nowhere. But the story does not end there. The American fortification on San Juan Island was designed and built by a recent West Point graduate, Second Lieutenant Henry Martin Robert. His career suitably boosted by the high-profile incident, Robert went on to rise up through the ranks of the Army Corps of Engineers, playing a major role in the defenses of D.C., Philadelphia, and northern ports during the Civil War. He ended his career some decades later as the Army's Chief of Engineers. In 1863, Robert was asked to lead a church meeting at the First Baptist Church, 149 William Street in New Bedford, Massachusetts, where he was stationed while working on New England's port defenses. The meeting devolved into chaos and acrimony bordering on a riot. Struck by this experience, Robert later wrote what he's actually remembered for: Robert's Rules of Order, the 19th century's definitive handbook on parliamentary procedure, intended to enable the orderly conduct of business by large meetings. More than a century later, the Republican Party becomes one of the many organizations to incorporate into its rules what has become Robert's Rules of Order newly revised, the 12th edition, and over the years they became acclimated to the habit of using, abusing, gaming, and strategizing around this arcane set of procedures. Oh, arcane is a little harsh there, don't you think? But anyway, this weekend there were several urgent and important controversial resolutions brought before the committee, including a resolution to censure Senator Risch and Senator Crapo for voting for the Biden infrastructure bill. Several motions were made, one member, to delay, block, and debate rules in an effort to exceed an arbitrary timeline, and as a result, several important resolutions were dismissed. So, to answer a question I've gotten a few times over the past 24 hours, he's still writing here in this post, but it's nearly done. in the past 24 hours. Why are two absolutely out of touch, deranged, crazy, Marxist sympathizing senators not being censured by the Idaho Republican Party? Because some dude shot a pig in 1859. And he writes at the bottom, the Robert's Rules of Order narrative borrowed from A. Craig. I don't know who A. Craig is. So I read the post there. Now, so the Mark Johnson proposals haven't had their due time. They will be considered at the next meeting, which is like right before the State Central Committee meeting, if I'm doing the math right. So I would just ask the author of that post, which this will probably get around to him eventually, why didn't 3 other proposed bylaw amendments on top of other needed business get their due time? Apparently, because someone wanted to blatantly waste time, and some other dude shot a pig in 1859. I'm going to rest a bit before doing other videos. Y'all have a good night.